Hello, Maple. Um, well, it's Tuesday evening for me, but this will be for Wednesday for you guys. I've been counting through the chapters, and to make sure that we've got a chapter for the rest of this week and next week, before we come back to school, it's going to be one chapter a night now. So, Grandpa Byron and Al are going mum searching, aren't they? That's where we left them last time. So, chapter 76. Which is how later that day Grandpa Byron and I end up in Blaydon, 15 miles up the Tyne from the coast. And I tell you, 15 miles on the back of a little moped is enough punishment for anyone's bottom. Ooh. Grandpa Byron's been telling me that when he first came to the UK, Blaydon was a coal mining village, but there's no mining here now. Just street after street of neat red brick houses and a supermarket and a garage. And it's just like everywhere else, really, except it's up one side of a valley, and in some places you can see right down to the River Tyne and across the other side. And that's pretty cool, really. And that is where my mum Sarah lives, on a wide road outside of Blaydon. Grandpa Byron's already phoned her to tell her he is coming. They stayed in touch for a while after her near drowning. She invited him to her wedding, to Roddy, a policeman. But he didn't go, and then they kind of drifted out of each other's lives. But, as Grandpa Byron pointed out, it's difficult to hide these days unless you really want to, and it didn't take him long to track her down. The trouble is, of course, that my mum is only my mum in another, and I'm sorry, I'm going to have to get technical here, space-time dimensional thingy. She's not my mum here. A fact I'm not completely sure Grandpa Byron has understood, and actually, who can blame him? Quite what he's thinking, I don't know. I don't actually think he's worked it out beyond a boy needs his mum. Now we're outside her front door, and even though Grandpa Byron has told me to be calm and not to freak her out, when she opens the door, she is exactly, and I mean exactly, my mum, even down to the way she's wiping her hands on a tea towel. And something in me just pulls me forwards, and before anything else happens, or any other greetings, I just say, "Hi, Mum," and wrap her up in my arms, and I just know at that moment that the most powerful force in the universe, a parent's love, will make her see the truth, and she'll know that I am her son. And she'll fold her arms around me and kiss the top of my head and say, "Oh, how I've missed you, Al. All my life I've missed you, and now you're here, and everything will be all right." Except she doesn't, and it isn't. It's actually awful. She kind of gently eases herself out of my arms and holds on to them and looks into my face and says, "Oh, okay." And I say, "Mum," and I know I've blown it. She's totally freaked out, though she's kind enough not to make it very obvious. Her eyes flick to Grandpa Byron. She's still holding my arms at my side so that I can't hug her again. "This is, begins Grandpa Byron. "This is my grandson, Al Chaudhry." Mum lowers her head and looks in my eyes and says a bit slowly, "Hello, Al. Nice to meet you." Of course, she thinks I'm slow or have some sort of mental disability, and why wouldn't she? So begins the most awkward, uncomfortable 15 minutes of my life. Or, to adapt the hot stove pretty girl analogy of my namesake Professor Einstein, 15 minutes in the presence of someone who both is and is not your mum, along with her suspicious husband, feels like a lifetime. We go through, me and Grandpa Byron, and we sit in her tidy front room. And her husband Roddy, who's now an inspector in the Northumbria Police, brings in some tea and a juice box for me, like I'm 5 or something. She and Roddy and Grandpa Byron talk adult small talk, all the "how have you beens" and everything, which lasts a few minutes, and I learn that she and Roddy have no children, but several nieces and nephews, and that they're very fond of them, and they moved here about 8 years ago, and Roddy built the conservatory himself, and blah 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 blah. But then it starts to get a bit tricky because all this while I have said nothing, and there are some big question marks hanging in the air. Who am I? Why did I call her Mum? And so on and so forth. Mum says to Grandpa Byron, "Did you say I was your grandson? By your daughter Hypatia, yes. Didn't she move to America or Canada ages ago?" Yes, she came back." Then Roddy chips in, "And he has your surname, Chaudhry." Perhaps it's just me. Perhaps it's just because I'm on edge and he's a policeman. But there's an almost silent suspicion in his voice. Yes, we wanted to keep the name in the family," says Grandpa Byron airily. Too airily, if you ask me, because there's still something going on in Roddy's eyes. And me, I'm sitting there saying absolutely nothing at all. I mean, I can't. Can I? How can I? What can I possibly say? It just can't get any worse. By the way, whenever anyone says that to you, remember that it will get worse. It did for me, and it was all my own fault. I'm on her shiny black sofa, and there's one thing I can do to show her that we have a connection that might persuade her that she is my mum, and that's my syndactylic toes. I wait till Roddy's left the room for a moment, then without saying anything, I quickly take off my shoe and say, "Look." Another tip. If you're in strange company and want to convince someone beyond a shadow of a doubt that you are mentally deranged in some way, taking off your shoes and socks and saying, "Look," is a good way of doing it. I now know that. Mum barely glances at my feet, but smiles indulgently and a little bit nervously, and her eyes look at Grandpa Byron, sort of pleading for help. "My toes," I say. "Look, like my mum's." "Oh, yes," says my mum enthusiastically, but it's not her real voice. It's the voice that people who don't have children use when they actually talk to children. A bit too sing-songy. "Did your grandpa tell you I have that too? You probably know how rare it is. How unusual. You're very special, Al, aren't you?" Special? Mum's smiling at me, but it's not a real smile either. It's a sympathetic, synthetic smile, which might be all I will ever get from her. It's time to go. I can't stand it anymore, and I quickly put my shoe and sock back on and stand up as Roddy comes back in the room. Actually, put your shoe and sock back on. He's got that the wrong way round. You'd have to put your sock on first, then your shoe. Ta-da! Mum says, "From your mum, you say?" Then to Grandpa Byron, "I don't remember you saying Hypatia had syndactyly." Ah, oof, he's confused, bless him. He means his dad. "Anyway, nice to see you again, Sarah, Roddy, and it's like we can't get out of that house fast enough. I know that I've been acting oddly, and there's just this look that is still on Roddy's face as he and Mum say goodbye and 'please come again' and all of that kind of stuff. I know I have messed up, but I still try one more tactic. 'Say hi to Auntie Ellie for me,' I say, and Mum gets this shocked look on her face as Grandpa Byron practically pulls me up the driveway. Back on the scooter, we are a little way up the street, and I crane my neck back to see Roddy turn to Mum. He purses his lips and shakes his head, and it's at that exact moment that I can see who's coming, and I know what I have to do. Who do you think is going to be, Maple? Well, like I said, I've timed out the chapters, so I will say bye for now, but I'm going to record Thursday's chapter straight after. Okay, Maple, take care. Bye. Bye.